Joining us from SoCal is, I hope I describe you correctly, Annie Sertich, actress, improv funny woman, voiceover genius, shapeshifter, all-around empath. You have seen her in Silicon Valley, Curb Your Enthusiasm, Shameless, Grey's Anatomy. The one-act play, which went global, is How Not to Kill Yourself for 30 Days and the Next 330. And this doesn't even begin to describe you. You know, for example, you're a Michigander. How are you?
I'm great. It's warmer than Michigan, so I'm happy.
I would otherwise, we would give the title of this episode, Annie, Are You Okay? Which I think is essential to understanding this, because I think back to other funny people I had on, Chris Gethard, namely, in Chris Gethard's stand-up talking about his dalliance with depression and suicide, and you being very open and very vulnerable. There are people out there. You talked about Ricky Gervais. We spoke about other funny people. Clearly you studied Daryl Hammond and the various other characters that came in and out of SNL and went through the Groundlings. I mean, I buried the lead. You were a big-time teacher and judge and regular at the Groundlings, the landmark improv company in Los Angeles that's 52 years old. How do I even start with something like that? I'm fascinated by that straddle, that divider between pleasure and pain and hurt and joy for others. I've seen it in Jerry Rafferty. I've seen it in various people, Stevie Nicks, some of my favorite funny people, some of my favorite creatives. Is it almost axiomatic that you have to have that trauma to have that kind of comic genius?
Boy, first of all, a great question. Second of all, axiomatic. Okay, let me make sure I know what that word is.
I think I would have missed that word on the SAT, but go ahead.
That's okay. I didn't do well on the verbal of SAT, but I will say that would I trade the trauma I've been through? Yes, but I think you make meaning out of it. And my way to make meaning out of it is through telling, through comedy and truth. And there's truth in comedy. So if you're not willing to be authentic and truthful, then it does come off like a bad therapy session, or it comes off like a journal entry, or it's uncomfortable in the wrong way. But I think, what else can you do with it? What else can you do with it? It happens, and then you're in it, and time doesn't heal it. It changes it, but I had to birth it. I was going out for kid shows. I played a scientist, who farted. I was doing a lot of commercials. I was stuck, and then my life fell apart, and I hit the bottom of the shit bucket, I like to say. And I thought, well, what can I do with it? So I actually went to a bookstore and I saw a bunch of books, and I saw that book, What to Do When You're Expecting, that Dr. Spock book. And for me, what landed me in the shit bucket was infidelity and divorce. And I didn't choose it. And with that was planning a family. So I thought, well, what do you do when you're not expecting? Like, what do you do? Where are the books on divorce that aren't about how do you navigate, the legal waters of it, or how do you get a mediator, or maybe you just dress better, girl. And I said, you know what? I'm going to start a journal, and I'm going to write how I feel, like in real time, so that one other person could potentially read a blog or a memoir or whatever. So in real time, I was really documenting these days that I was going through with this divorce.
Well, the American ancient Anglican way of dealing with this is traditionally alcohol, pills, eating, other vices, right? There's not something, only ultra transparency about therapy and mental health has become something really in the vanguard over the past 10 years. I would say when I was in college 30 years ago, nobody discussed that. Nobody discussed. No. I mean, people talked about in hushed tones where you might go for the morning after pill, but I was in college in the late 90s. Nobody discussed therapy as an option. You just thought, this was the way you.
I only dropped one class in college, and that was stress management. I didn't know what to do. I didn't even know the word anxiety until I came to California. I really didn't.
You have to fill in the blanks first and start where it all started, right? Suburban Detroit, Bloomfield Hills, right? I'll say just a city girl born and raised in South Detroit. I did an NPR piece about Journey's Don't Stop Believing. There's no such thing as South Detroit, but you were in an up and coming, a very happy, an otherwise happy part of suburban Detroit, where General Motors executives and the like lived, and your father was a corporate executive. Talk about your childhood, and I will collect a psych copay from you afterwards. Go ahead.
Okay, great, great. Okay, set the timer and go. I was, yeah, I grew up in Bloomfield Hills. I went to a Catholic school, all nuns. They fasted on Friday. They were meaner on Friday, every Friday, no meat, all those things. And I was a really smart kid, destined to be a lawyer. I won the leadership award in 7th grade for an essay about becoming a lawyer. I was a good kid, but I was a weird kid because my mother was divorced, and she was
When did your
divorced.
parents get that divorce?
Let's see. So it was early, like 80, like 1980,
And
81,
how old were you?
6, 7, right there.
And they
Yeah.
pulled you aside. They pulled you aside. Did they fight? Did you know that this was in the offing?
I was often late for church. I was often late for school, and my mom broke her finger because she slammed it on the counter. So I knew there was a problem at home, but I just, we grew up with a lot of family around, and we really grew up with my father's Croatian influence. So I just knew that they weren't dancing together. The parties, they were sitting on other sides. And I just knew, I had a sense that something was wrong. So they didn't quite pull us apart, or talk to us, but it just was that now dad's weekends were happening down the street at a condo. And you went to dad's every other weekend and once during the week. And
Did you carry this as an open resentment, or the fact that everybody was in proximity and you had a lot of family around? Was this a scar in your childhood?
Less with my family, but more with all the girls, because I went to an all-girls school in high school, especially. And we were the one family that was divorced, and nobody talked about it. So also, I lived in a privileged neighborhood, but we were the outside raking the leaves. So the cars would drive by and my sister and I would just get mad and hold up our rakes and be like, what? You've never seen kids work? I mean, we were just these tough, gritty kids. And I think I developed this chip, which is part of the I'm never going to give up, the grit, the Detroit Lions in me, going to the Silverdome with my father in $20 seats, getting a $20 bill and running around the Silverdome, we were explorer kids. I was going door to door selling blocks that I just I drew a picture on. I was not an artist. We were weirdos. So, I felt a little misunderstood, but I couldn't say it was because my parents were divorced. I just felt outside.
So you excelled through high school. You continued on high school. Was this idea that I'm going to get away from this place? I'm going to show them.
Yes,
And
absolutely.
And you went off where'd you go off to? Did you leave Michigan?
I was going to go to U of M or a small Jesuit school in Cleveland. And I chose the latter. I got a small scholarship. I was able to play volleyball. I would have never played at U of M. And it was cheaper for me to go to this small school in Cleveland. And my brother also went to that school. So I, packed it up, took the little Ford Escort, of course, American car, and drove to Cleveland.
And I understand you were on the LSAT track?
Oh my God. I was a double major, philosophy, political science. And I did a year of volunteer work, which got me to LA. So I was on the LSAT track. I was going to be a lawyer. I, graduated magna cum laude out of John Carroll, and I decided to do a year of service work that brought me to East LA. So I'm like, hey, Dad, I'm going to do a year of service work in East LA. And his only reference was the movie Colors. And he was like, what are you doing? What are you doing? I thought you were going to go to Georgetown. And that was the pressure.
What compelled you to go to East LA? Was that Teach for America? Was that some other thing that would help you with student loans? Or I want to understand the avenue, because if you're on this track, maybe you're going to apply to Michigan Law School. Maybe you're going to apply to Chicago. Maybe you're going to apply to the Ivies. You had the grades, you had the chops, you had the drive, but you wanted to diverge to go to Skid Row, LA.
Yes. Yes, I had a constitutional law teacher, and something came up because it was JVC, Jesuit Volunteer Corps. And she said, if you don't do it now, you'll never do it. And I just remember that. And I thought, what would it look like to go all the way there? I was fascinated with California. I loved it. I came out once when I was 16 and I saw people with Uggs and surfers. And I remember having a crush on a guy named Rat, who played like Skate or Die, that machine Skate or Die down at the Balboa Pier. So I had a vacation there and I thought, okay, this could be the way to California. But we were raised very like fiscally Republican, socially Democrat. So I really was like, I can do a year of volunteer service and see what happens. But I'm going to law school. This will be a great 1 year, but I'm going to law school. So I applied. I got to California. I didn't know I was choosing East LA, but that's just where, and it was 5 kids picked to live in a house like the real world. They were all teachers, and I worked down in Skid Row with job rehabilitation and education.
So did you feel safe going off? I mean, let's talk about Skid Row. You could see U2's Where the Streets Have No Name, the famous Bono video shot in the spring of 1987 atop the liquor store near, was it the Hotel Cecil? It's much worse now than it was then, but it's nowhere for a young, aspiring a lawyer from Michigan to just be walking all hours of the day.
No, and I had a North Face backpack and a little, Michigan cap. Oh, I was such a fish out of water. I didn't know what I was doing. The first time I took the bus, I went the wrong way towards Montebello instead of downtown. Excuse me.
That's an insured voice. You got to take care of it.
Thank you. So I was completely out of my element. We were social workers, so we had caseloads of 50, 60. I was listening to these stories. I was learning about, over time, I was learning about how it was so easy it was to slip into homelessness. It wasn't just one decision. I was meeting, men who had been longshoremen off of Long Beach, and now I was trying to teach them how to create, at the time, a login on a old Dell computer. I was slowly getting transformed. But at the same time, I was studying for the LSAT at night, and I was taking these courses called the Kaplan preparation course.
Yeah. I still have an unopened Kaplan test prep kit from 1998. I never could quite crack it and compel myself to take the LSAT, but go ahead.
Well, I was studying, and hey, still you could, but I was studying for that test and taking all the practice tests and doing all the things. And my housemates at the time were doing other really fun things. Like I said, it was sort of the real world, but it was no cameras, no jacuzzi, and you had $75 a month in community to live. So they were off doing fun things, and I was studying for this LSAT over and over and over. And I, sat at the bus stop late at night. I was presented a gun from a man's trench coat. I was very aware that I wasn't as safe, and that my Michigan, Cleveland girl was so out of sorts. And then the day of the LSAT came, and this was everything, because if I didn't do well, if I didn't score what I had planned on, the one practice test, I got a 171. That's my biggest humble brag ever. And so I was like, if I don't, I'm going to have to move back to Michigan. I'm going to have to, take
Annie,
care of family.
You were magna cum laude and you got a 171 on the LSAT. You could have gone to any law school, and it would have talk about a fork in the road. But I don't know if the story's apocryphal, but you guys needed to use the bathroom one afternoon and you walked into the Groundlings Theater. Is that what I'm to understand?
Yes. Yeah. So my housemates and I were walking on Melrose. At the time, it was full of a lot of thrift stores. And then I saw that place. I was like, I need to use the restroom. And again, there weren't as many, folks walking around that were nefarious or whatever. So everything was open, jumped in, and I looked around and I saw Mindy Sterling. I saw Pee Wee Herman. I saw Phil Hartman, these pictures on the wall. And I stopped and I looked and I thought, I want to be on this wall one day. And then I peed, washed my hands, and I left and was like, oh, okay. See you guys. I'm taking the LSAT. And 2 weeks later, I'm on the bus going to take the LSAT. I've got everything. I've got everything they tell you to bring. Extra pencils, an extra granola bar, the whole kit. And I open up, they say go, and the first section is logic games. So I needed to strategically score really well on logic games to do well. And I start, and I'm like, okay. And all of a sudden, I'm touching my nose, and I start having a bloody nose. All over. And the only thing I didn't bring were tissues. So I'm like, oh my God. And it's all flashing in front of me. I've got to move home. I've got to go take care of my grandmother. My grandmother's a very specific woman. She, you know, scrubs the floors for Jesus. Like, I am going to be stuck. And I saw it all flash in front of me. So I finished the test. I went home. I called my tutor and I canceled the score. And you could take it again. So I signed up for the next one to take again. And during that time, I slowed down and my friend said, why don't you come to this improv class? And I thought, well, improv. I mean, I knew a little bit of it. I studied a little bit of theater, but I'm from Michigan. I'm not an actor.
You
I
had
have a
done
big
no
nose.
acting in high school or middle school?
I had done dance, and a lot of our dance was also acting out. And then in college, I left the volleyball team eventfully. It was a big event. That was a different story. But I did try out for the play and I did make the lead of the play. And so I loved it. I loved acting, but there was no way. There was no way. Like I said, I'm a girl from Michigan. I'm Midwest. I got a hump in my nose. I've got Croatian thighs. I'm not going to be an actor. I need to be a lawyer. I'm smart. I'm supposed to be a lawyer. And then I went to that comedy class, Roben, and it was on Saturday mornings and a cute guy invited me and I went and I was changed forever. I couldn't believe there was a room full of people making up things without a script and everybody was saying yes to it. I couldn't believe there was somewhere where I could talk about these characters from my crazy past and it would be celebrated. I couldn't believe there was this art form where once you learn the technique, it's about not thinking. And I was hooked. And then from there, zip zap, I worked in social work with homeless youth. And then from there, went on to work with I did some other social work stuff. And then I got hired to write jokes for the internet. And I knew young people because I was working in social work with young people. And so then I wrote jokes for young people. And then from there, then it was just the hustle. It all began. And law school fell away like your 1998 little envelope. And I never did it. I never went.
Full disclosure on Roben Farzad. It is a joy to welcome Annie Sertich. She is a voiceover funny woman. She's an actress. You've seen her on Silicon Valley, Curb Your Enthusiasm, Shameless. Gosh, Grey's Anatomy. You were the pot woman, was it, in the pot mother in Grey's Anatomy? You were bringing the bad marijuana to the hospital?
Weed moms. Yes. Yes. We were saying there was weed in the brownies we brought to the hospital and we got the entire hospital high. We didn't know it.
And I can say that you've hit it big on social media over the last several months, and this is how I found you. And I would just say, go Google Annie Sertich if you're out there. I'm not doing justice. We're talking about how she broke through and broke in with the Groundlings. I can say it's suffice to say you found your people. You were on the precipice of finding your people, right? This nosebleed, which was almost your mind and your body rejecting this prescribed route, whatever the heck you were running away from, that no, actually, I got a taste of this. There was fate or kismet, or for whatever reason, I came in and saw this wall of fame, and maybe there's a chance. You're saying there's a chance that I could do this.
Right. Exactly. So I started taking improv a bit more religiously, and I ended up in a scene with like Ryan Stiles and Sam Simon, who was one of the co-creators of The Simpsons. And I was terrible. I always played a cheerleader or a valley girl. I was terrible, but I just kept going. And on the weekends, I would go and I'd watch Lisa Kudrow in this group called the Transformers. And then I would go to the Groundlings. And then my first show was this Thursday night Cooking with Gas show where Mike Myers was testing out Wayne's World character. And then I saw Mindy Sterling. And then I was walking in Santa Monica and I saw Mindy Sterling. And I smiled and she smiled. Later, now we're friends. And later I asked her, I said, do you remember that? She goes, no, I have no idea who you were. But I went home and journaled. Like all of this is leading to me somehow becoming part of this. But all along, I never really believed I could. And it took me about 7 years. And then I got into the main company and then started directing that same show that I came and watched and sat and saw Mike Myers.
I gotta ask this when watching improv, there's always this element of cringe. Like you remember even watching first season of the UK's version of The Office or anything. There was this cringe, but an enjoyable cringe. And there has to be a soupçon, a frisson of masochism for a person who sees this and wants to be a part of it, to be so vulnerable out there, to be terrified that maybe I'm thinking too much. No, trust the process. No, go out there again. We've visited this with stand-up comics going up there and the dreaded dead time, or the other people jeering you or following on after someone else. One, I'm interested what the inner voice in your head was saying when you had to go up there. And two, what the blue collar family in Detroit was barking in your ear when you were going on this venture.
My grandmother kept saying, charity begins at home. Come home, Anne. She couldn't understand. What are you doing out there? Comedy? Oh, you're comfortable? Well, was Jesus comfortable on the cross? I mean, she was relentless. And my family my mom kept saying, well, you're a good writer. Why don't you go? She wanted me to be a journalist. And that's why I'm just so in awe of you. And my father thought I would be good in the FBI. But the little voice said, you've got nothing to lose anyway. It became addictive because somewhere I read, maybe it was Elizabeth Gilbert, if you find somewhere where time stops, keep doing that. And for me, time stopped when I got on stage in a team sport-like environment, not stand-up where I was alone, where I would look to a person on my right or a person on my left, and we were going to create something out of nothing. It is masochistic because I still drive home going, why did I make that choice? But I have more technique and tools and reps, but I couldn't wait. I couldn't wait to try it again. And a lot of people can't come and watch improv. Some of my friends say, I need to come when you do sketch comedy or your one-person show because I can't watch you do improv. I get too nervous for you. Even though I know you're going to be good, I get too nervous for you.
What's going on in your head when you broke through? It's like the inception moment when you turn the corner. Again, you know what? The imposter syndrome, and we all face it and we all fear it. I feel like my questions are not sophisticated enough for this line of work. I admire your stuff from afar, but I'm trying to occupy the mind. Ultimately, there's an empathy here in these characters that you occupy, who we see on social. Like, what is going through your head? I can imagine a lot of people would tell me, I don't remember what was going through my head when I first crushed it.
What was going through my head was, I just did that weird character. Some of it secretly is what I'm pulling from my life, and people laughed. Like, I was a little kid that wore like a Ziggy t-shirt that said, I don't do Mondays. I didn't know what that meant, but I walked around and I wasn't the coolest. I wasn't the most popular. I was very smart, but I thought, wait a minute, I'm seen. I don't know that I knew those sort of more self-actualized words at the time when it was happening, but I felt seen in a way that I couldn't at an audition. I couldn't when I was writing anything. On that stage in that moment, I felt seen. And I was like, I'm just doing my weird aunt who always, she paints fruit on bar stools and she often has a UTI. I'm up here talking about her. That's why she's having a Grey Goose with extra cranberry, and people are laughing. But it was different than stand-up. I wasn't aware it was happening. And what was going through my mind was, I want to do more. And these are my people. Like, these are my people. To be quite honest, I would sit in that pit or direct. We call it the pit, where you sit and watch each other perform. And I think, oh my gosh, there's Julia Sweeney. There's Mike Hitchcock. And they're now people that I text. What? But they made me laugh, Roben. I lost my dad tragically. And the only place I could go was the Groundlings and therapy. But it was the Groundlings that picked me up from that stage when my life was going down and down and down. And then again, I had another tragic loss recently, where I lost my brother. And, after a little time cleaning up some of the stuff, the only thing I could look forward to is getting back to the Groundlings and getting on the stage and transforming who I was in a different character, but bringing me still to it. I don't own a home, and I have a really bad car from 2008 that I hate valet parking anywhere. But I do something that is so joyful, which is performing improv at the Groundlings and other places.
and you can whistle on the way to work at least what, half of the time. I say that's the ratio that you should be judging career success. I have to ask, when this clicked and you did perform and you did find a family and maybe you were getting casting calls and various other overtures that come with the full run of what you're doing. I guess for some people, maybe the pinnacle is SNL. For others, it's a life of stand-up comedy work. For others, it's, you want to be like a Will Ferrell type and be known like a complete Hollywood A+ lister. Did you have to set up anything like an exploratory committee, the type A, high school overachiever going around and taking notes and talking to people? Like, I heard that you were coached by Cheryl Hines of
Yeah.
Curb Your Enthusiasm fame.
Yes, she was my first teacher at the Groundlings. Yeah.
So how does this work? And we do get mercenary. I mean, it's full disclosure. We get down to it. You didn't have student loans, I imagine, at this point.
Oh no, still. Yeah, yeah, yeah. But I was a social worker for 2.5 years out here. So I knew what it was like to really budget. Just pay something. That's what my dad said, just send them something. And so I started waiting tables. I catered. I mean, I was changing ashtrays for Jonah Hill. I was like at Thanksgivings where Courtney Love was saying her gratitude list. I worked at so many different restaurants. For a long time, I worked at one place where, we had to call our boss the captain. I worked at another place where the paparazzi would ask us if the celebrities ate turkey bacon or regular bacon. I mean, it was such a hustle because you were around so many people, but you were so on the outside of doing anything creative and making any money from it. So I just didn't give up. I just kept hustling, hustling. I wrote like, I wrote promo copy for like penis enlargement for Howard Stern Radio. Currently I'm writing promos for the Olympics, so that's a little bit better, but I wrote for MTV. I wrote jokes and stories for Ridiculousness and Robin Big and Fantasy Factory for Rob Dyrdek. I was just doing so many things I could.
So what becomes the calling card for that kind of person? You're established at Groundlings, right? And you're both teacher, you're both taking it in, you're giving it, you're being very sharing. You might get gigs across the country, you might get voiceover work, commercial work, bit parts in great series. We're in the golden age of TV and streaming and HBO and Netflix and whatnot. Is it your IMDb thing? Is there an agent? How does this even work? Because it's all an education to you.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I got an agent. I got an agent. I worked a little bit in casting and someone was like, oh, and because I was performing in shows, the agents would come. Now it's a little bit different. There's specific industry nights, but I got an agent and then that agent, it was just a commercial agent. And my first commercial was a Crest commercial.
So that is fascinating. I really want to occupy this mindset. So it's coming to you and you're knowing in the kind of the Croatian hardscrabble Detroit work, take it, you have your grandmother's voice and the more you suffer, the more you really care. You're out there bussing tables, working things, proximity to celebrities. You're also being exposed to suffering in social work and seeing how worse it could be, right? You're exposed to battered women, families falling apart, all these other things. And you're out there dispensing very candid comedy, like almost transmogrifying your own pain out there. In the meantime, you're making a living. You're keeping it all together doing this.
I mean, barely, but yeah, because it was having 2-3 jobs, always still having a day job, teaching a lot. And as I started teaching more, I got better at my own improv and I started working in casting a bit, learning what was happening behind the camera and then applying that and then starting to book more commercials. So for a good, up until like this year, really, and last year, it was a good living off of commercials. I've played, I was the caveman's wife in Geico. So, that's another big claim to fame with my LSAT score, but it was awesome. And I got to do a few of those. And so I live simply in order to live large.
So what does the whole SAG-AFTRA thing mean? Like that indoctrination? Jimmy O Yang, your co-star on Silicon Valley, we had him on the show several years ago because as I told you, for a person who was so hilarious, so larger than life on that great HBO series, Silicon Valley, to find out that he was Uber driving during the first 2 years of Silicon Valley while he was making SAG-AFTRA minimum just to make ends meet, just to get to the point of, what is it called? Escape velocity, where you can make a living as a stand-up, where you can get paid to travel the world or be in something like Crazy Rich Asians. Did you have this in mind? I mean, that I would think that it's a huge thing that you got this major role as the tech blogger on Silicon Valley, or the fact that you were on Curb Your Enthusiasm. Remind us, that was, the Seinfeld equivalent of that was the Double Dipper, right? And you were the ones who, what was it called when Larry David called you out for saying you had a conversation with somebody in the hors d'oeuvres line and you used it to cut? What was that? That was iconic.
Thank you. It was called the Chat and Cut.
The Chat and Cut. You were the Chat and Cut lady.
Yes. And when I get recognized, people chat and cut me, and I love it so much. So permission for anyone to chat and cut me. Yeah. All improv. You got a slip of paper. I had auditioned a few times for the show. That was one that landed. When you auditioned with Larry. So you were aware because he was improvising with you, but he was also watching you. And that was one of my favorite jobs. Stressful, scary. He came in, he looked at the guest stars for the day, and he said, all right, let's see who's first. All right, let's see what you got. It was like, whoa. But I had been prepared because I was doing so much stage work where I had nothing. So you do it, you try it, and they huddle together, and then they go, no, try it again. Do it, huddle together, try it again. And until you start landing on something. And truthfully, in that episode, I do a double cut. And I double cut because I was really annoyed at Larry David. I had no sense I was actually strategically doing anything comedic. I was that annoyed at Larry David that he that he was being this sort of line police, that I double cut in front of him to kept going at him. So when he says at the end, I'm impressed by your skills, he's telling me he's impressed that I found the thing that they then wanted to keep circling and then do from different angles. So yeah, sometimes I'm like, wait, I did that job. That's the thing, Roben, is when I look at my resume, I think how hard it is and was to get those jobs. And then I think I've done all those things. And then I think I've only done those things. And now it's so much harder. The needle is even harder. Where I had a domain in playing, funny office person, it's now like Judi Dench. I mean, SAG-AFTRA, I've only really made minimums. I've never hit that big thing, but with enough of them and a frugal mindset and a hardworking Detroit attitude, I'm too stupid to quit. But making health insurance is the thing you have to do. And now you have to beg to even get extra work. But you can't go to London and do extra work. You can't go to Canada and do extra work. So it's become even harder to exist as an artist right now.
Full disclosure, stay with us. This show podcast to NPR, YouTube, Spotify. You can watch us, listen to us. All of it is at one link, fulldradio.com. Again, fulldradio.com. Please follow us, rate us, call your girlfriend, tell your mother-in-law. You can follow us on all social media, Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook. I believe I still have a MySpace and Friendster handle somewhere. But regardless, find me at fulldradio.com. I want to shout out to our radio listeners, WVTF Radio IQ across the great Commonwealth of Virginia. We are on KPPQ in Ventura, California. In Asheville, North Carolina, we are on WPVM. Holler if you too would like us on your air. My DMs, alas, are always open. If you're just joining us, Annie Sertich is my guest. She joins us from Los Angeles. She is an accomplished alum and practitioner at Groundlings. Actress, improv, funny woman. The one act play is How Not to Kill Yourself for 30 Days and the next 330. And there's no easy way to seg into this. And that I did start the show by talking about the straddle of pleasure and pain. I did cite Chris Gethard, the funny person out there, the comedian, the improv person, who discussed his dalliance with suicidal thoughts and others. And there are others who've come out. I mean, I think about Daryl Hammond in SNL. I think about the various other people who've suffered in comedy. And only in the last decade or so has it become safe for people to openly discuss their journey in and out of this ordeal. Fast forwarded for us, you were established as a budding actor. You were getting voiceover work and everything. And then you had this marriage fall apart. And describe the situation.
Yeah, I had enough success commercially to pull away from catering and waiting tables every weekend. I'd gotten in the Groundlings. My picture was on that wall that I one day thought I would be part of. I was in the main company of the Groundlings. There's only, at the time, there were only 30 members at a time. And my husband and I had already had a bump in the road. We had a bump. We repaired our bump. You fight for your marriage. And I came home and I was like, let's go away for the weekend. And he said, there's someone else. And the bottom dropped out. Truthfully, the bottom dropped out. And I thought, well, wait, no, we already had our speed bump. Like, you don't turn the car around and go home. You keep going. You keep going. And there was no keep going. And I was right at the age where we were starting to plan a family, and it gutted me because I knew myself as a daughter, a teacher, an actor, an improviser, a wife, and I liked being all those things. So here I was when my friends were having like baby number 2, I was gutted. It sounds better when British people say it, but I was gutted. And so I thought, well, I mean, I don't know. My friend said, can you come and help me plan a party? And I said, no, my life's falling apart. She's like, just come be of service. It's the thing. Just come do it. Get out of your head. So I went over and I helped her plan her kid's birthday party. And on the way out, she said, what are you going to do with the rest of your day? And I said, well, I'm going to kill myself. And she said, can you just not for 30 days? And I said, well, does today count? She said, yeah. So we drew up this tiny contract that I had in my purse from a little book that I was counting calories on. And we wrote up the contract. And I said, for 30 days, I will not. And within that 30 days, I went to therapy. I cried on the bathroom floor. I ate so much pudding. I tried to teach at the Groundlings, but I wasn't a very good teacher. I was really upset. I was just struggling so hard. And then on day 12, my dad came out. And after I said, don't, I'm fine. I'm Croatian. I'm fine. I can get through anything. Okay. No, Dad, don't. But he came out and he really picked me up off that bathroom floor. I mean, he really did. So he spent 12 days with me. He made me brush my hair, put on lipstick, go eat soup outside of my apartment. And he was like, you're going to get through this. And then I went to New York and I bought a new coat, and it was my divorce coat. And I was like, I'm in New York. My sister lived there, and I was finally feeling better. And I went to the Broadway show, Rock of Ages, and I sat like 8th row. I had a friend in it. Konstantin Maroulos he was right in front of me, those leather pants right there. I turned to my sister and I said, I am happy. I am finally happy. Now we're on day 70 of that contract. Day 80, actually. And then intermission comes and I see a missed call from my brother. And my brother never calls me. Like when we were young, he'd be like, Ann, go out in the yard and pick up sticks. I'm like, I don't remember that we had a stick problem in our front yard, but I called him and I couldn't understand him. And then someone got on the phone and said, your dad is gone. And I was like, well, where'd he go? Because he had been visiting Cleveland with my brother. And he said, he's like, gone. And I just was like, no, I just had submitted a tape to SNL where they were going to see my nosy neighbor character. What? No, I'm better. I'm better. No, this can't happen. Like what? And I couldn't believe I was rushing to get on a plane to get down to Florida but my dad had just been with me.
Was he ill?
No, brain aneurysm. Yeah.
And just how much sooner than this did you have the intervention? Did you have your breakthrough with your dad?
It had just
been. How many days prior to this?
So he was with me from like day 12 to day 25. And then on day 80, he died. We talked every day. Every night he would text me and he'd text me Lako noć, which means good night in Croatian. And I'm like, Dad, I'm better now. You can stop texting me. And
Annie, did he stay with you when you were in LA?
Yes.
And did you ever in your entire life have this kind of candor with him?
No, he had lost his wife, and I would look out at night. I would look out and he'd sleep on the couch and he had this photo book, not a booth, a book of her. And he would look at it and he'd put it away. I had never seen that side of my dad. He talked to me about the divorce of my mother with my mother. I had never known that he really didn't want to be divorced. I never knew the sacrifices he did to live yet 3 miles from us. So my divorce connected me to him in a way that I didn't even know was possible. And then he just died. Like he was 64 and he died. I've never seen the second act of Rock of Ages. I I still have those old texts. I can't take him out of my phone. It was just, and I thought, well, now I'm really going to live in his honor. And boy, I went even further down, Robin. I went further down. But this time it was not suicidal ideation. It was just malaise. It was just neutral because I, at his funeral, I walked behind the casket and I looked at the faces and I thought, oh no, I could never do this over a guy who just couldn't keep it in his pants. Never. No. I looked at friends and family. So my dad actually, in losing his life, he saved mine. Truly.
Wow. Annie.
Yeah. Well, there's a third act to it, Robin. And I'll just say that then I was like better. And then day 300, something unimaginable happened that was another loss. And it was like something that you'd have on Dateline. So you could come to the show to find out more about it.
So is there a part of you at this point that is kind of stepping outside of this story and saying, gosh, I had just on this gimmick of what my friend said, just give me 30 days. Can you do this 30 days later? That you have this timeline in your head. You have the hash marks on it. I could see that you could point out day 12, day 10. Is there some part of you that even while you were in pain, it wasn't the same spiral, as you said before, that, you know what, this is self-limiting. I'm going to come out of this. You said something so key is that I'm going to dedicate this to my dad's honor, my dad's memory. It was this extraordinary intervention when you were at your lowest in LA. And also this understanding at his funeral that it was awful, but you were going to come out of this somehow.
Yeah. Yeah. I knew I would live in his honor. Like I knew. While they were sealing up the casket, I said, let me wait. I want to put a thank you note in there. And I thanked him for all the things he did, that big VHS cam on his shoulder where he was recording my dance recitals, the taking me to the Pistons games and the Detroit Lions games and letting me run around, all the things he did.
And the whole time you were journaling these, through your pain, through your grief, through the tears, that you were actually writing this down, no matter what. I guess back in a hotel room or whatever it was in New York, or going down, to the funeral, going back to Los Angeles in your loneliness.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's why then after I'd recovered some and I wanted to write a show about it, I had the journals and the memoir and the vlogs and the things that were real time rather than the manufactured version of what I thought I felt, what I remembered. I had these real time, how I really poured it out. And some of that was so raw. That's not what you invite people to come see. A lot of people hate one person shows. They're like, no, it's going to be called like Choices. And it's going to be a woman with like herself, in her fist. But no, I pulled from it, and I had an amazing director, Michaela Watkins, and she's a very accomplished actor. And she helped me strategically put together like a 52-minute 3-act thing where it came really from the raw stuff that I had written while I went through it.
And I don't have a vocabulary for this, but how is that presented? Like somebody at some point says, okay, you're going to write this down. We're going to tease it out. You're going to have an editor. It's being mined. It's being edited. It's being sculpted. So it's not so much free association because there has to be a beginning, a middle, an end. It has to have so many minutes for a stage. It has to work here. It has to work abroad. At what point were you ready to have that conversation of kind of packaging and not even commercializing? I don't know if there's a commercial incentive. Ultimately, it's a storytelling venue. Clearly, memoirists have had issues with this. You've talked about, is it Jeanette McCurdy and others out there, that this is really, again, it's only become conventional, even accepted over the last 10, 20 years.
Yeah. Jeanette saw the show and I played her mom in an early draft of her pilot for Wish My Mom Was Dead. And that was quite an experience to embody someone that had brought someone so much pain. But it's like, I see in you what you see in me. And Jeanette and I really had that moment through my show, through her art, through then hers became then a one person show and then ultimately the book. But I was part of a taped pilot very early on that she wrote. And I think those were just my people that we were just like, oh, we have these trauma points and we're all coming together. And so it became, I need to do the show. I just need to do it. I set out to do it once and I couldn't believe I had a full house. So I did it again. And then I couldn't believe I had people come. And then it became on and off for 2016 to 2019 I forget when the pandemic was.
Yeah, it's just a big hole in our timelines right now. But
Yeah.
tell us about the pandemic. That is a through line for this. Were you getting, I mean, you saw the Samuel Rukin episode. Were the casting things changing? Did you have to set up equipment at home? Did you have to suddenly change yourself, morph into this person? And by the way, it was still to a certain extent the last innings of the golden age of streaming. HBO Max and Netflix and Hulu and Paramount and all of them were super acquisitive. This was before the crash and the deep freeze or whatever you want to call it right now and the consolidation. I do want to get to some of that, but tell us how you handled that pandemic. And I did bring up Bo Burnham to you because I figured you must have watched that. You must have had thoughts on that act.
Yeah, there's not even a word to describe how insanely talented he is. And the pandemic at first was horrifying personally, but it was great for commercials because I was being hired a lot because people knew me and they knew I would deliver on set and they would knew, oh, well, if we hire Annie, she'll do it a bunch of different ways and I can trust her through this Zoom box or through whatever app. They were like, oh yeah, okay. So I did quite well the first year of the pandemic in commercials. Um, I was alone in my house, only talking to my cat. I was deathly afraid. I had booked a Super Bowl commercial, went down to Florida through the Delta Lounge. And if you caught COVID, you'd be instantly fired. And I got fired from that Super Bowl commercial because I tested positive. And I swear it was the Delta Lounge's fault in the Atlanta airport. I had been so good in Florida, seeing nobody, masking when I was with myself. And then I pop positive 6 days later and I miss the Super Bowl commercial. I miss it. That would have been bragging rights. Rest in peace, my grandmother, but she would have finally said, okay, all
I see
right.
the Super Bowl ad. I know what you're doing now.
Okay. She used to always say, why don't you have more time on the air? I was like, oh, I don't get to choose, Grandma. Well, you should tell them.
It's
God
that
love her.
easy.
It's
It's
that
so
easy.
easy. A caveman's wife can do it. But
That's a good
in
one.
a few minutes,
See,
yeah,
Robin,
we
you
should work
improv.
together.
You do good.
No, I have a face for radio, as you could tell. I'm not a doctor. For an Iranian mother, it doesn't make a difference. My mother doesn't know what I do, but I digress here. In the few minutes we have left, Annie, tell us about your here and now, and tell us about the small screen. For reasons I can't quite into, you blew up quite a bit the last several months on the small screen, and I'm talking about go check out social media, go Instagram, TikTok, Facebook. This seems to be where all this stuff is headed, and it's a whole different world to have to master. And it started with you and that bathroom detour at the Groundlings, and then coming out and doing big screen, small screen, golden age of TV, HBO Silicon Valley, Curb Your Enthusiasm. Now it's terrifying in that it's done in these kind of 2-3 minute chunks. Comment on that.
Learning how to be a content creator and learning how to be an actor and a writer are a totally different skill set. So I walk the ceiling at night, as my friend David Feynman says, Chloe Feynman's father. We're quite good friends, and I taught her. And I walk the ceiling at night wondering, how am I going to create content for 1 to 2 minutes and also continue to write authentically and act authentically? I don't have the skill set. I mean, quite frankly, how long did it take me to understand how to put this microphone in that dongle and understand USB-C and A? It's terrifying. It's terrifying that that the working actor's gone the guest stars are now the movie stars. The movie stars are now the guest stars. So the guest stars are now in the background or extras. But AI, is coming for us all. And I don't have the legal team or the team to help me protect myself. So it's terrifying. So I think, all right, I can put something on social, but I don't know what totally works. I don't know the algorithms, and I start learning about it. But then the more I'm learning about it, the more I'm getting away from the art form that made me a good actor in the first place, or made me an authentic character person. There's a lot of character people on the TikTok and all that good stuff. But I think to truly be good characters, you have to be vulnerable. You have to know every character has some sort of Achilles heel. And if you don't know it, and if you're just playing the stereotype, or if you're only playing 1 minute, how do you really know the breadth of their life? How do they eat? What do they eat? How do they vote? Do they sleep in a twin bed? Do they take their coffee with cream? Do they cry? But when you only create content for 1 or 2 minutes, you don't know those things about characters. And that's what I just doom scroll and I get really bored quickly. I didn't learn to do characters by having something written on the bottom that says, crazy lady trying to order coffee. And then you just do it. I learned how you have to be it. When you're on stage, there's no little, what do they call it? A chyron? That's an old word.
Yeah.
There's no chyron. So I'm terrified of social media and content creation. And yet I think that might be all I can do.
And yet, if I may say, the comment, if you can, on the virality of what's happened over the last several months. What kinds of overtures have you been getting? People have coming into your DMs. After all, it was in the foot in the door. I clearly saw you on Silicon Valley. I can remember the character of the quasi-ethical tech blogger. I remember your character on Curb Your Enthusiasm. But what really drove it home, and what really clearly the Instagram whatever it is, what's the word, the formula. What is the
formula? Algorithm. Axiom. The word is axiom.
It clearly understood me. And it was as echoed by the number of people who were sending that to me that said, Farzad, this is you. This is the kind of person you want to have on Full Disclosure. So that must have opened other doors for you over the last several months.
Yeah, some things are, moving and grooving in terms of places where I didn't know there could be opportunities, like us talking. And people, would send me things. I'm like, oh, wow, I relate to things people are sending me. Oh, yeah, I relate to that. Like I said, I'm divorced. My mom was divorced. She'd been known to scoop out a sort of protein dairy treat. And she also added pineapple, chunks of pineapple. But you always feel like, well, now what? What? I mean, I remember shopping around my show a bit with a really good team of people. And I went and met a lot of good people who came and watched the show. Industry people were like, wow, I called my dad on the drive home from your show. Or, oh, wow, I feel hopeful. I listened to Coldplay driving home and I felt hopeful. But then they go, no, now what else? What else you got? What else you got? So you go, oh, I don't know. I mean, I'm digging in and I'm going, well, what else do I have? So what I know is I'm too old to give up. I don't have a backup career. And so I just keep going.
Annie Sertich, funny woman, actress, comedian, improv-sario, all around shape-shifting genius, and Michigander and ancestral Croat. I can say, using a now FDA-banned ad line, you've come a long way, baby.
Thank you. Some days I feel that.
Consider yourself a friend of the show. You're always welcome on the show.
Oh, thank you so much. I feel like we could both dig into the LSAT and being a lawyer, and I want to know why you didn't take it. I have so many questions.
Do I owe you a copay or vice versa for psych? But anyway, come back on the show anytime, Annie. I'd love to see you when I'm out west.
Thank you. Yes, please. And come see the show. I'll be doing it at Groundlings in 2026 about 4 times, starting in May. How to Not Kill Yourself for 30 Days in the next 330. And there's some spoilers.
Do you do any touring across the country now? Are there times where you're going to be in other cities, or are there plans to take it maybe back to Detroit or do it at UM or other places?
Yes, I'm thinking about it because I do think that talking about suicidal ideation and talking about the bottom dropping out is something that we're not as scared of. And that's so exciting to be part of it. I mean, there's hotlines now that you can call that hopefully the administration will keep funding for. But yes, so I'm very excited to broaden the message out and just allow people to see like, oh, okay. We'll put moments together and we'll be okay. We'll keep going, somehow we'll get off that kitchen floor or or you know what? If they see their dad or mom or somebody call them, they'll pick up the phone for that phone call because you don't know. I mean, certainly that's what has now just happened with my brother. So there'll be a little addendum in the show because how can I talk about the show without now talking about losing my brother? He would hate it. He would hate it. He was not a theater guy. He would hate me talking about him in a theater setting. So I just so appreciate being on, letting me share. You're unbelievable. You're so awesome. I've learned some new words and, I feel like we have the same music taste, so that's always a good thing. Those are my people.
Thank you, Annie. Come back on.
Thank you.
Full disclosure, special thanks again to Ian Stewart. If you are listening to us on the radio, note that while we cut for broadcast, the entirety of every interview is on podcast, whether on the NPR app, Spotify, Apple, YouTube. Find them all at one neat link, fulldradio.com. Again, fulldradio.com. And recommend us to a friend. And catch me on both CNN and NPR's Here and Now. I'm Roben Farzad. Thank you for listening. Back with you next week.